Dr. Sjostrom, what significance does the series have for you?
When the American Psychological Association met in 1964, I knew that Rogers, Ellis, and Pearls were going to be there. And the thought came to me, wouldn't it be interesting to have these highly divergent points of view brought together with one patient in one afternoon? And this was the birth of the series.
So we'll have an opportunity to see the divergence of each view.
Yes, great men, each with their own point of view, and yet terribly different as they interact with Gloria. So I think all three films will show these divergences as we go along.
Good. Now let's go ahead and see the first segment. In this first excerpt, the therapy session is already in progress. We meet Gloria, the client, as she interacts with the founder of client-centered therapy, Dr. Carl Rogers.
Well, the main thing I want to talk to you about is I'm just newly divorced, and I had gone in therapy before, and I felt comfortable when I left, and all of a sudden now the biggest change is adjusting to my single life. And one of the things that bother me the most is especially men and having them into the house and how it affects the children. And the biggest thing the thing that keeps coming to my mind I want to tell you about is I have a daughter, 9, who at one time I felt I had a lot of emotional problems. And I wish I could stop shaking. And I'm real conscious of things affecting her. I don't want her to get upset. I don't want to shock her. I want so bad for her to accept me. And we're real open with each other, especially about sex. And the other day she saw a girl that was single but pregnant, and she asked me all about, can girls get pregnant if they're single? And the conversation was fine, and I wasn't at ease at all with her until she asked me if I'd ever made love to a man since I left her daddy, and I lied to her. And ever since that, it keeps coming up to my mind because I feel so guilty lying to her because I never lie and I want her to trust me. And I almost want an answer from you. I want you to tell me if it will affect her wrong if I told her the truth or what.
And it's this concern about her and the fact that you really aren't, that this open relationship that has existed between you now you feel is kind of
Yes, I feel like I have to be on guard about that because I remember when I was a little girl, when I first found out my mother and father made love, it was dirty and terrible, and I didn't like her anymore for a while. And I don't want to lie to Pammy either, and I don't know.
And you sure wish I could give you the answer as to what you should tell her.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Because what you really want is an answer.
I want to especially know if it would affect her, if I was completely honest and open with her, or if it would affect her because I lied. I feel like it's bound to make a strain because I lied to her.
So you feel she'll suspect that, or she will know something's not quite right?
I feel that inside she'll distrust me, yes. And also I thought, well, gee, what about when she gets a little older and she finds herself in touchy situations? She probably wouldn't want to admit it to me because she thinks I'm so good and so sweet. And yet I'm afraid she could think I'm really a devil. And I want so bad for her to accept me. And I don't know how much a 9-year-old can take.
And really, both alternatives concern you, that she might think you're too good or better than you really are.
Yes.
And she might think that you're worse than you are.
Not worse than I am. I don't know if she can accept me the way I am. I think I paint a picture that I'm all sweet and motherly, and I'm a little ashamed of my shady side, too.
I see. It really cuts a little deeper. If she really knew you, could she accept you?
This is what I don't know, yes. I don't want her to turn away from me. And I don't even know how I feel about it, because there are times when I feel so guilty, like when I have a man over. I even try to make a special setup so that if I were ever alone with him, the children would never catch me and that sort of thing. Because I'm real leery about it. And yet I also know I have these desires.
So it's quite clear, it isn't only her problem or the relationship with her, it's in you as well.
And my guilt, yeah, I feel guilty so often.
What can I accept myself as doing? And,
yes.
And you realize that you set up sort of subterfuges so as to make sure that you're not caught or something. You realize that you are acting from guilt, is that?
Yes. I don't like the way, I would like to feel comfortable with whatever I do. If I choose not to tell Pammy the truth, to feel comfortable that she can't handle it, and I don't. I want to be honest, and yet I feel there are some areas that I don't even accept.
And if you can't accept them in yourself, how could you possibly be comfortable in telling them to her?
Right.
And yet, as you say, you do have these desires and you do have your feelings, but you don't feel good about them.
Right. And I have a feeling you're just going to sit there and let me stew in it, and I want more. I want you to help me get rid of my guilt feeling. If I can get rid of my guilt feeling about lying or going to bed with a single man, any of that, just so I can feel more comfortable.
And I guess I'd like to say, no, I don't want to let you just stew in your feelings, but on the other hand, I also feel that this is the kind of very private thing that I couldn't possibly answer for you, but I sure as anything will try to help you work toward your own answer. I don't know whether that makes any sense to you, but I mean it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
Well, it seems as though the relationship was a real one.
Yes, I think this is the real strength of Roger's approach, that he really exuded warmth and Gloria received it, and at the same time his warmth was communicated by his mirroring or his reflection of her feelings in his refusal to answer her question. Yet he was also doing something which he has written about more recently, which is that he is encountering her with his feelings of helplessness and not being able to give her advice or tell her what to do. I think the other thing which of course interests me is that when she mentioned her guilt, Pearls or Ellis would have given some concrete formulations to cope with that, whereas Rogers again places this in the same category of relationship and simply says he wishes he could help her with this, but it's up to Gloria to handle her own guilt.
He certainly is not going to give her the answers, but rather she must
discover them for herself, yes. But again, this is a contrasting viewpoint, and as we see the others work, we'll see how differently they would handle specifics like guilt, for example.
Well, before we see the next segment, which features Dr. Fritz Perls, how about a definition of the term Gestalt? What does it mean?
Gestalt is a German word for a whole, but the whole always has to be broken down into two parts, the figure and the ground. That is, the typical Gestalt figure in a textbook shows two faces which are background, and yet if you look at the figure again, you see a base emerging between the figures of the faces. So that what Perls is saying, and what all Gestalt psychologists are saying, is that one must always break the whole into two parts. The figure, which stands out, which is really brought out by the viewer, and then the background. And you can make the figure or the background reverse itself. You can watch either the vase in the center, or you can watch the faces behind the vase, or you can make the figure stand out of the faces, and the vase then goes into the background. But figure and ground always are the two dimensions of the whole, which makes up the Gestalt.
Well, in reference to the dichotomy of mind and body, which really are inseparable, Perls tries to unify both elements.
Yes, I think this is true with Perls and a number of other therapists now, including myself. I think we really have to get rid of the mind-body dichotomy, that your body is your mind and your body is yourself, and that we don't just simply operate from the head and then below the head, but rather we operate as a unified whole. And again, we have this Gestalt coming through as a integration of mind and body.
Then the possibility that man is really more than the sum of his parts. And I imagine that's what makes man so unique, that something more.
Yes, the word Gestalt again means that the sum is, the total of man's being is greater than the sum of the parts. It's like an automobile is more than just a bunch of nuts and bolts and screws and put together. When it comes together, it becomes an automobile which is more than just these pieces separately.
Well, let's watch Dr. Fritz Perls in action as he demonstrates Gestalt therapy.
Now, what would it do for you to feel dumb and stupid?
I hate it when I'm stupid.
What would it do for you to be dumb and stupid? Put it so like this. What would it do to me if you would play dumb and stupid?
It makes you all the smarter and all the higher above me. Then I really have to look up to you because you're so smart. Yeah.
Oh ja, Gott hat mich verbreitet left.
No, I think you can do that all by yourself.
I think the other way around. If you play dumb and stupid, you force me to be more explicit
That's been said to me before, but I don't buy it. I don't
Now,
believe
what are you doing with your feet now?
wiggling them.
What's the joke now?
Oh, I'm afraid you're going to notice everything I do. Gee.
Don't you want me?
I want you to help me become more relaxed, yes. I don't want to be so defensive with you. I don't like to feel so defensive. You're acting like you're treating me as if I'm stronger than I am, and I want you to protect me more and be nicer to me.
Are you aware of your smile? You don't believe a word what you
I
say.
do too, but I know you're going to pick on me for it.
Sure, you're bluff, you're a phony.
I still resent that. I'm not a
Oh, that's
phony when
okay.
I'm nervous.
Again.
I want to get mad at you. You know what I'd like to do? I want you on my level, so I can pick on you just as much as you're picking on me.
Okay, pick on me.
I have to wait till you say something that I can pick on, but
What does this mean? Can you develop this movement?
I can't find words. I want to,
Develop this, as if you were dancing.
I want to start all over again with you.
Okay, let's start all over.
I know a corner I'd like to put you on. I'd like to ask you a question, and because I have a feeling you don't like me right off the bat, and I want to know if you do.
Can you now play Fritz Perls not liking Gloria? What would he say?
He'd say that she's a phony, for one.
Say you are a phony.
You're a phony, and you're a flip little girl, and you're a show-off.
What would Gloria answer to that?
I know what I'd answer. I'd say, I think you are too.
No, say, tell this to me. Tell me what a phony I am.
Well,
Say, Fritz, you're a phony.
well, phony's not quite the right word, but it's more like a show-off.
Sure.
Like you know all the answers,
Yeah.
and I want you to be more human, and that doesn't seem very human to me.
To know all the answers is not very human.
Yeah, to right away find out how I'm kicking my feet, and why am I doing like this? Why are you doing like that?
Oh dear, I've got eyes. I can see you're kicking your feet. I don't need a scientific computer to see that you're kicking your feet. What's big about that? You don't need to be wise to see that you're kicking your feet.
I know, but it seems like you're trying to find some reason for it.
I don't. It's your imagination.
Okay, I know what I'd like from you. Can I tell you what I'd like from you?
Yeah.
I'd like you to be aware that I'm kicking my feet, and to be aware that I'm giggling when I'm really nervous, and accept it instead of putting me on the defense of having to explain it. I don't want to have to explain why I'm doing these things.
Did I ask you to explain it?
You said, why am I, or what am I doing?
No,
Well,
I
what am I doing, you said.
That's right, kicking your feet. I didn't ask you to explain it. It's your imagination. That's not this Fritz, it's the Fritz of your imagination. It's a big difference. Now do this again. Again. How do you feel now?
I don't know.
Playing stupid.
I'm not playing stupid. I
You
don't
see,
know
I
the
don't
right
know.
answer.
This is playing stupid.
Well, Dr. Pearls deliberately confronted and challenged Gloria. Why?
Well, I think I'd like to answer that indirectly if I can. I was impressed by the difference in pace between Rogers and Pearls. That it seems to me in some ways Pearls was more with Gloria than Rogers. Rogers set the deliberateness of his slowly reflecting feeling, whereas Pearls was with Gloria and all she was doing. For example, when she showed an obvious difference between her body and her verbal expression, he called attention to this. And this frustrated her because she didn't know that this was happening, that her smile was ungenuine and phony, and she really didn't want the help in the sense that he was suggesting to her. So this was one thing.
Well, he suggested that Gloria was manipulating.
Yes, of course, that word interests me because I've written about it. She was plain dumb and stupid. That is, she really wasn't dumb and stupid. She's a bright girl, and yet she played the little girl hiding in the corner, and he really attempted to point that out in the here and now to make her aware of that. And of course, there's always a gain or an advantage. If you play dumb and stupid, then the expert, the authority, will do it for you. And she was attempting to get him to do this, and he was not going to let her get away with it.
Well, it seems as though he was trying to get Gloria to assume more responsibility for her own behavior.
Yes, in an entirely different way than Rogers, and yet in a very profound way. That is, the average patient really does play dumb and stupid most of the time. He wants the problem solved for him. He thinks of psychotherapy as a helping process. And in reality, what one does then is to project onto the therapist the expertness, the knowledge. And he simply frustrated her attempts to do this.
And he did it deliberately.
Deliberately, and so frustration is a deliberate part of Gestalt therapy, as opposed to the ease and the warmth that characterizes the Rogers approach.
Well, let's watch the third and final segment, which features the founder of rational emotive therapy, Dr. Albert Ellis.
I believe that people only get emotions such as negative emotions of shyness, embarrassment, shame, because they tell themselves something in simple exclamatory sentences. Now let's try to find out what you're telling yourself. You're meeting this individual. Now what do you think you're saying to yourself before you get flipped?
I know what it is that I don't stand up to his expectations. I'm not quite enough for him. He's superior to me. Although I want this type of man, I'm afraid I won't have enough to attract him.
Well, that's the first part of the sentence, and that might be a true one, because maybe he could be superior to you in some ways. Maybe he wouldn't be attracted to you, but that would never upset you if you were only saying that. I think he may be superior to me. Now, you're adding a second sentence to that, which is, if this is so, that would be awful.
Well, not quite so extreme as that, because I've thought about that too. It's usually, I've missed my chance again, because when I want to become, if I want to show the very best of myself, because I think I have self-confidence that I have enough to offer.
Yeah.
But when I get afraid like that, then I show all the bad qualities. I'm flip, I'm so much on the defensive that I can't show my good qualities. And it's like, I missed my chance again. There was a good opportunity to be close to this man, and I loused it up again.
All right, but even let's suppose you're saying that, and I think you really are, but you must be saying something else too, because if you were just saying, hell, I missed my chance again, you'd say, all right, next time, I'll take advantage of what I learned this time and do it a little better. Now, you still must be saying, if you feel shame, embarrassment, shyness, that there's something pretty bad about your error in missing your chance again.
I don't know if this follows in context to what you're saying, but the thing I do feel is that I get suspicious then. Am I the type of woman that will only appeal to the ones that are to not my type of guy anyway? Is there something wrong with me? Am I never going to find the kind of man I enjoy? I always seem to get the other ones.
All right, now you're getting closer to what I'm talking about, because you're really saying, if I am this type of woman that none of these good, eligible males are going to appeal to, then that would be awful. I'd never get what I want, and that would really be something frightful, isn't
Plus, I don't like thinking of myself that way. I want to put myself on a higher standard. I don't like to think that I may be just an average Jane Doe.
But let's just suppose, for the sake of argument at the moment, that that were so,
All right.
that you were an average Jane Doe. Now, would that be so terrible? It would be inconvenient. It would be unpleasant. You wouldn't want it. But would you get an emotion like shyness, embarrassment, shame out of just believing that maybe I'm going to end up like Jane Doe?
I don't know.
Well, I don't think you could, because you still would have to be saying on some level, as I think you've just said, and it would be very bad. It would be terrible. I would be a no-goodnik if I were just
Well, plus,
Jane Doe.
I'd never get what I want. If I were just a Jane Doe, and if I'd have to accept that, I'd never get what I want, and I don't want to live the rest of my life with just icky men.
Well, it's
want
not necessarily so that you'd never. You really mean your chances would be reduced, because we know some icky girls who get some splendid men, don't
Oh,
we?
that's
Yeah.
right.
You
That's
see,
right.
so you're generalizing there. You're saying it probably would be that I'd have a more difficult time, but then you're jumping to, therefore, I'd never get it all. You see
Well-
the catastrophizing there that you jump to.
Yes, but it feels that way to me at the time. It seems like forever.
That's right, but isn't that a vote of non-confidence in you? an essential vote of
Yes.
non-confidence.
Yes.
And the non-confidence is because you're saying, one, I don't want to miss out on things. I would like to get the kind of a man I want and be a, in your words, superior kind of girl who gets a superior kind of man.
Yes.
But if I don't, then I'm practically on the other side of the chain completely, a no-goodnik, somebody who will never get anything that I want, which is quite an extreme away, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's what I call catastrophizing, taking a true statement, and there is a good deal of truth in what you're saying, if you didn't get the kind of a man you wanted, that it would be inconvenient, annoying, frustrating, which it really would be, and then saying, I'd never possibly get what I want, and even beyond that, you're really saying, and then I couldn't be a happy human being. Aren't you really saying that on
Yes.
some level? But let's just look at that. Let's just assume the worst, as Bertrand Russell once said years ago. Assume the worst, that you never got at all, for whatever the reasons may be, the kind of a man you want. Look at all the other things you could do in life to be happy.
Well, according to Dr. Ellis, Gloria had a problem because she had irrational thoughts about herself.
Yes, I think sometimes there's a tendency for students to kind of undervalue Ellis. Freud used to say the voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it demands to be heard. And I think all therapy is exciting and experiential in the ways that Rogers and Pearls bring things out, but I think from time to time in therapy it's a kind of a hard, studied approach getting at some of the assumptions, some of the values that we are implicit in what's happening. So in Gloria, as I see it, her assumption was that she was shy and that she shouldn't be shy. She should be flippant, and that this would make her more attractive to a man, and that this underlying assumption then about the fact that she wanted to be something different, that she didn't want to be an ordinary Jane Doe, is a very important assumption, because I think 90% of our problems are due to the expectations we have about ourselves, and then the feelings of lack of self-worth that come when we don't live up to those expectations. So it seems to me what Ellis is saying is a very important thing. Let's look at those expectations. Let's look at those assumptions about yourself and reevaluate those assumptions. And this is the nuts and bolts part of psychotherapy.
Well, how is it possible to integrate these divergent points of view?
Well, you're asking now what I've dedicated my life to doing, in a sense. Since we made this film, it seems to me we've had to look at therapy as an enterprise, something like medicine. Many years ago, medicine used to have many specialties, and you'd have a chiropractor, and you'd have a person working on your eyes and working on different parts, but we never put it together until the general practitioner came along. And my theory is that in psychotherapy, we have to go beyond simply schools of thought, that most therapists today are what I call emerging eclectics, and that we have to not only look at the methods that we can learn from these men and others, but we also have to have a goal for therapy, which I call self-actualization from Maslow's writings. I think we not only have to learn methods of helping, but we have to have a clear picture of what we're attempting to do. And Maslow has said to us, psychotherapy has to be for something, and not just to get rid of mental illness or disease, as often in psychiatry we have said, but rather to help persons to function more clearly in the here and now, to be, to have the freedom to be, to actualize one's being.
To develop one's potentials more completely?
Yes. So I think the way we can do that is, first of all, to do what Rogers does, to focus on the feelings. I have more clearly delineated the feelings that I think are important, the feelings of anger, hurt, trust, love, and fear. All these are feelings that need to be focused on. I think also we need to continue to do what Pearl says, to focus on the patient's awareness in the here and now, that we really have to recognize that our only reality is the here and now, and so my approach does this. But I also, as I say, highly respect what Ellis is saying, that therapy is the process of revising our assumptions about life, so that if we can create the kind of relationship that Rogers talks about, in the here and now, as Pearls talks about, examining those assumptions that we've made about ourselves and others, then we can put these into a gestalt, a total whole, and develop the best parts of all three of these. And this is what I attempt to do in what I call actualization therapy.
Many persons seem to have difficulty understanding the concept actualization.
So I think that's a very important point, that I've come to define actualization as freedom to be. And freedom to be means the ability to experience and express myself in the here and now. It seems to me the goal of therapy, if we could define it as such, is the attempt to help a patient or a client or a person, really now I'd like to call him, get a feeling for what he is feeling inside, and then to experience that feeling sufficiently to express it to the leader, the group leader, or the therapist, and that actualization is the process then of helping a person to more clearly experience and express himself.